Sarah Jenkins stood trembling at the edge of town, her mother's cruel words still echoing in her ears. No man will want you. The wagon train would leave at dawn without her. At 19, her size had made her an outcast among her own people, a burden too heavy for the journey west. Tears streamed down her round face as she watched the sun set on her old life. She never saw the silent figure observing her from the ridge, never noticed the Apache chief's eyes lingering not on her ample form, but on the quiet dignity with which she bore her pain. In his tribe, a woman of substance was a treasure, not a shame. Would she find strength to embrace a new world that valued what others scorned? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The night air bit at Sarah's skin as she huddled beneath a lone cottonwood tree, clutching her torn calico dress around her shoulders. One small valise containing her worldly possessions sat beside her. A Bible, a hairbrush with several bristles missing, and 3 handkerchiefs embroidered by her grandmother. Her mother had thrust the bag at her with averted eyes before climbing back into the wagon. "You'll slow us down in the mountain passes," her father had explained, not unkindly. "We can't spare the extra horses to pull your weight." He'd pressed a small pouch of coins into her palm. "Enough to get you situated in town or passage back east." The town was 3 wooden buildings and a half-dozen tents, hardly a place for a woman alone. Sarah knew what happened to unprotected females on the frontier. She'd watched the wagons disappear into the distance, her mother's face a pale oval in the back opening, unreadable from afar. Had there been regret in those features? Or only relief? Sleep came in restless patches. Each time Sarah closed her eyes, she saw her mother's brooch, the family heirloom passed through generations, now destined for her sister Eliza's slender neck. "You understand," her mother had said. "It wouldn't suit your figure." Dawn broke over the eastern plains, painting the sky in streaks of amber and rose. Sarah rose stiffly, her body aching from the hard ground. She retrieved her valise and turned toward the settlement. 3 steps later, she froze. A man sat astride a paint horse 30 yards away, watching her. His copper skin gleamed in the morning light, black hair flowing past broad shoulders. The bone breastplate and feathers marking his clothing identified him clearly. Apache. Sarah's breath caught. Tales of Apache cruelty haunted settler campfires. Yet the man made no move toward her, his face impassive as stone. "I have nothing of value," she called, voice steadier than she felt. The warrior remained motionless, eyes never leaving her face. Not her body, her face. It struck Sarah as peculiar. Most men either stared at her size with disgust or averted their gaze entirely. After what felt like eternity, he dismounted with fluid grace. He was tall, taller than most white men, his movements deliberate as he reached into a leather pouch at his waist. Sarah tensed, expecting a weapon. Instead, he extracted something small and wrapped in leaves. With measured steps, he approached until 10 feet separated them. He crouched, placed the leaf package on the ground, then backed away, never turning his back to her. "I don't understand," Sarah whispered. The warrior gestured to the package, then to his mouth. "Food." He was offering food. Sarah hesitated, suspicion warring with hunger. The man returned to his horse, mounting with the same fluid motion, then pointed westward across the plains. With a final inscrutable look, he wheeled his horse and rode away. Sarah approached the package cautiously. Unwrapping the leaves revealed dried meat and something resembling corn cake. Her stomach growled treacherously. She looked at the distant settlement, then west where the warrior had indicated. The wagon train had headed northwest. West meant open territory, Apache land. Certain death, her father would say. Yet death seemed to await in all directions now. Sarah ate the offered food slowly, savoring each bite. The meat was tough but flavorful, the corn cake unexpectedly sweet. When she finished, she noticed something else in the leaves. A small piece of polished stone, smooth as glass, with veins of blue running through it. She held it to the light, wondering at its significance. A gift? A marker of some kind? The sun climbed higher, promising punishing heat by midday. Sarah tucked the stone into her pocket, gathered her valise, and made her decision. She began walking west. By midday, the sun beat mercilessly upon the plains. Sarah's dress clung to her damp skin. Her breathing labored as she trudged forward. She'd long since emptied her canteen, and her cracked lips stung with each breath. The distant smudge of trees promised water, if she could reach it. A sound behind her, hoofbeats. Sarah turned, squinting against the sun. The Apache warrior had returned, his expression unchanged as he assessed her condition. Without dismounting, he extended a water skin toward her. Sarah hesitated only briefly before accepting it, drinking deeply of the cool water. When she tried to return it, he shook his head, pointing again to the distant trees. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, knowing he couldn't understand her words. The warrior studied her face, then tapped his chest. "Mountain wolf," he said, the English words heavily accented but clear. Sarah's eyes widened. "You speak English?" Small words. "Few." He pointed to her questioningly. "Sarah," she replied. "Sarah Jenkins." Mountain Wolf nodded once, then gestured for her to keep the water skin. With another meaningful look toward the trees, he turned his horse and rode ahead, stopping after 50 yards to look back at her. An invitation, or a trap? Sarah clutched her valise tighter and followed. Either way, she had little choice. The grove of cottonwoods sheltered a small spring, the water clear and sweet. Sarah drank deeply, then splashed her face, the cool droplets a blessing on her sunburned skin. Mountain Wolf kept a respectful distance, tending to his horse and gathering wood for a fire. As dusk settled over the plains, he built a small, nearly smokeless fire. From a leather pouch, he produced more dried meat and something resembling flatbread. He placed a portion on a flat stone near Sarah, then sat across the fire to eat his own meal. "Thank you," Sarah said, the words inadequate for her gratitude. Mountain Wolf nodded, his dark eyes reflecting the firelight. After they'd eaten in silence, he reached into another pouch and withdrew something small. He studied it briefly, then extended his hand toward her. Sarah cautiously accepted the offering, a small wooden carving of a bear, standing on its hind legs. The craftsmanship was remarkable, each detail rendered with precision. "Bear," Mountain Wolf said, pointing to the carving. "Yes, bear," Sarah replied, running her finger over the smooth wood. He tapped his chest. "Apache sea bear. Strong spirit." He gestured to her. "You." Sarah frowned, puzzled. "I'm like a bear?" Mountain Wolf's face remained impassive, but something like amusement flickered in his eyes. He made a gesture with his hands, suggesting bulk and solidity, then nodded approvingly. Understanding dawned. Where white settlers saw her size as shameful, this man saw strength. The concept was so foreign, Sarah couldn't fully grasp it. "My people," she began, then stopped, unsure how to explain with his limited English. "Your people," Mountain Wolf said, his expression darkening. "Leave woman alone. Not good." He shook his head. "Apache never." Sarah clutched the bear carving. "What will happen to me?" Mountain Wolf seemed to understand her fear. "Safe," he said simply. "My people." He pointed west. 2 days. Sleep came easier that night, exhaustion overcoming fear. Sarah awoke to find Mountain Wolf already preparing to depart, his movements efficient and silent. He offered her more food and water, then gestured to his horse. "I can walk," she protested, knowing her weight would burden the animal. Mountain Wolf shook his head, patting the horse's muscular flank. "Strong, like bear." That ghost of amusement again. Reluctantly, Sarah allowed him to help her mount, his hands respectful but sure. He walked beside the horse, leading it westward across the rolling plains. Throughout the day, Mountain Wolf pointed to various plants and animals, offering their Apache names. Sarah repeated them, her tongue stumbling over the unfamiliar sounds. Sometimes he corrected her pronunciation, other times he nodded with approval. By midday of the second day, the landscape changed, becoming more rugged. In the distance, smoke rose from what Sarah assumed was the Apache encampment. Her anxiety returned tenfold. "Your people," she began hesitantly. "Will they accept me?" Mountain Wolf considered her question. "Chief accepts. Others follow." He tapped his chest. "I am Chief." Sarah's eyes widened. Not just any warrior then, but the tribal leader himself. "Why help me?" she asked, the question that had plagued her since their first encounter. Mountain Wolf's gaze was steady. "Dreams speak. Spirits say, strong woman brings new strength to people." He touched the bear carving she still carried. Bear woman. Before Sarah could process this revelation, movement caught her eye. Several Apache riders approached, their expressions wary as they spotted her. A rapid exchange in their language followed, Mountain Wolf's tone authoritative. One warrior gestured emphatically toward Sarah, his face hostile. Mountain Wolf responded sharply, silencing further protest. The warrior's demeanor changed immediately, their postures becoming deferential. Mountain Wolf turned to Sarah. "My people come see. Some not understand yet." He offered a rare, slight smile. "We'll learn." As they approached the encampment, Sarah saw women pause in their work to stare, children darting behind their mothers' skirts. Some faces showed curiosity, others suspicion, a few outright hostility. An elderly woman emerged from a large dwelling, her silver-streaked hair bound with leather cords. She studied Sarah with piercing eyes, then spoke to Mountain Wolf. "Stands tall woman," he explained to Sarah. "Medicine woman. Very wise." The elderly woman approached, circling Sarah with a critical eye. She reached up, surprising Sarah by taking her face between weathered hands, turning it side to side as if examining a horse for purchase. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled, revealing missing teeth. She spoke to Mountain Wolf, who nodded. "What did she say?" Sarah asked nervously. "She say you have strong face." Mountain Wolf's expression remained serious, but his eyes held that hint of warmth. "Good for Apache woman." Sarah clutched her valise tighter, the last connection to her old life. The world around her was utterly foreign, the language, the customs, the very concept of her worth. Yet for the first time in memory, people looked at her without disgust. Stan's tall woman beckoned, clearly expecting Sarah to follow. With one last glance at Mountain Wolf, Sarah took her first step into this new world. Stan's tall woman led Sarah to a small dwelling on the camp's edge. Inside, furs lined the floor, and dried herbs hung from wooden poles supporting the structure. The old woman gestured for Sarah to sit, then bustled about, assembling items in a small pile. Mountain Wolf remained outside, conversing with a group of men whose elaborate headdresses and decorated clothing marked them as important within the tribe. From their gestures and occasional glances toward the dwelling, Sarah knew she was the topic of discussion. Stan's tall woman offered Sarah a wooden cup containing a bitter-tasting liquid. When Sarah hesitated, the woman made drinking motions, her expression insistent. Sarah sipped cautiously, fighting the urge to grimace at the taste. The medicine woman nodded approvingly, then began removing items from a decorated pouch. She extracted a small, flat stone painted with symbols, several feathers, and what appeared to be animal teeth. With practiced movements, she arranged these in a circle around Sarah, all while chanting in a low voice. Unable to understand and increasingly anxious, Sarah clutched her valise closer. Stan's tall woman noticed and firmly removed it from her grasp, setting it aside. Before Sarah could protest, the old woman began tugging at her dress. "No," Sarah said, pulling back. "Please, I can't." The medicine woman frowned, then called out. A young Apache woman entered, her eyes curious as she surveyed Sarah. An exchange followed. Then the young woman turned to Sarah. "She wishes to see if you carry disease," the girl said in halting English. "I am Morning Light. I learned English from mission school." Relief flooded Sarah. "You speak my language." Morning Light nodded. "Some words. She must check you. For tribe safety." Reluctantly, Sarah allowed Stan's tall woman to examine her, the old woman's hands professional and impersonal as they checked for lice, rashes, or other signs of illness. Sarah's fair skin, unmarked except for a birthmark on her shoulder, seemed to satisfy her. The medicine woman then presented Sarah with a small leather pouch decorated with beadwork. Inside were herbs, small stones, and a tiny carving similar to the bear Mountain Wolf had given her. Medicine pouch, Morning Light explained. Protection. Sarah slipped the cord over her head, the pouch resting against her chest. Thank you, she said to Stan's tall woman, who nodded in acknowledgement. As dusk approached, drums began beating in the center of the encampment. Morning Light returned, bearing a folded garment of soft buckskin. For ceremony, she explained. Chief presents you to people. Sarah's stomach nodded. What ceremony? Morning Light's expression became guarded. You will see. Come. The buckskin dress, decorated with intricate beadwork, was surprisingly comfortable, though designed for someone of smaller stature. It stretched tight across Sarah's ample form, leaving little to imagination. When she emerged from the dwelling, the drumming intensified. The tribe had gathered around a central fire, creating an aisle through which Sarah walked, guided by Morning Light. Faces watched her pass, some curious, others suspicious, a few openly hostile. At the fire's edge stood Mountain Wolf, now adorned in ceremonial attire that emphasized his status. Beside him, Stan's tall woman and several elderly men waited, their expressions solemn. Kneel, Morning Light whispered, guiding Sarah down before Mountain Wolf. The chief spoke in Apache, his deep voice carrying authority that needed no translation. He gestured to Sarah, then to the sky, the earth, and finally to his heart. The elderly men nodded, some more reluctantly than others. Mountain Wolf extended his hand to Sarah, helping her rise. He turned her to face the tribe, his hand remaining firmly on her shoulder. This woman now Apache, he declared in English, then repeated the statement in his native tongue. Strong woman, bear woman, my woman. Sarah's head snapped toward him, shock evident in her expression. My woman? Before she could question him, Stan's tall woman approached, placing a necklace of polished stones around Sarah's neck. The tribe responded with a mixture of cheers, murmurs, and in some cases, stony silence. The celebration that followed was unlike anything Sarah had experienced. Food was plentiful, the dancing mesmerizing in its rhythmic complexity. She sat beside Mountain Wolf, aware of her position but uncertain of its meaning. Later, as the festivities continued, Morning Light approached. You understand what happened? She asked quietly. Sarah shook her head. He called me his woman. What does that mean here? Morning Light's expression grew serious. It means you are his wife now. Wife, Sarah gasped. But there was no, I never agreed. He saved your life, Morning Light explained simply. You accepted his food, his protection. You came to his village willingly. I didn't know that meant marriage. For chief to take white woman as wife is great honor. Morning Light continued, her tone suggesting Sarah should be grateful. Many Apache women wished for this place. As if sensing her distress, Mountain Wolf approached. He dismissed Morning Light with a gesture, then turned to Sarah. You fear? He asked directly. Sarah struggled to articulate her feelings. I did not know I was to be your wife. Mountain Wolf nodded slowly. Need wife. You need place. Good match. His expression softened slightly. No fear. I am good man. He gestured to a dwelling larger than most others. My home. Now your home. He pointed to a separate smaller structure nearby. Tonight you sleep there. Alone. When ready, come to me. With that pronouncement, he walked away, leaving Sarah to contemplate her new reality. Protected, but claimed. In a world where every rule she knew had been rewritten, dawn broke with women's voices calling across the encampment. Sarah emerged from her small shelter, sleep-tousled and disoriented. A cluster of Apache women gathered at the edge of a nearby stream, carrying baskets and animal skins. Morning light approached, her expression expectant. You come now. Learn women's work. Sarah hesitated. What about him? Mountain wolf. Chief gone hunting with warriors. Morning light explained. Men hunt. Women work skins, gather plants, make food. She gestured to Sarah's buckskin dress. Need more clothes. Come. At the stream, the women's chatter stopped abruptly as Sarah approached. They assessed her with frank curiosity, commenting in Apache too rapid for Sarah to catch any words she recognized. One woman, tall and slender with striking features, stared with undisguised hostility. Swift deer, Morning light whispered. She wanted to be Chief's wife. The woman in question approached, circling Sarah with contemptuous eyes. She spoke directly to Sarah, her tone clearly insulting despite the language barrier. She says you are too fat and pale to be Apache woman. Morning light translated reluctantly. Says Chief took you from pity. Sarah's cheeks burned, but she lifted her chin. Tell her I may not be Apache, but I learn quickly. After Morning light translated, Swift deer laughed sharply, then thrust a heavy, partially tanned hide into Sarah's arms. The wet skin was heavier than expected, nearly knocking Sarah off balance. Swift deer said something that made the other women laugh. She says you must clean and stretch hide. Morning light explained. Very hard work. Under Morning light's guidance, Sarah learned to scrape the inside of the hide with a stone tool, removing bits of flesh and fat. The work was backbreaking, her hands soon raw and blistered. Several times, Swift deer passed by, making comments that caused knowing smiles among the women. By midday, Sarah's arms trembled with exhaustion, her lower back a knot of pain. Stan's tall woman appeared, observing silently before approaching. She inspected Sarah's work with critical eyes, then nodded once. Approval, Sarah realized with relief. The medicine woman spoke to Morning light, who translated. She says you have strong hands, good for work. From a pouch at her waist, Stan's tall woman extracted a salve, motioning for Sarah to show her blistered palms. The ointment stung, then cooled as the old woman applied it with gentle efficiency. She makes best medicine, Morning light explained. Says you must learn plants, too. In the afternoon, Stan's tall woman led Sarah into the surrounding hills, pointing out various plants and demonstrating how to harvest them. Unlike the younger women, the medicine woman showed neither resentment nor suspicion of Sarah, only a practical determination to impart knowledge. Through Morning light's intermittent translations, Sarah learned that each plant had multiple uses, some for healing, others for dyeing, many for food. By the time they returned to camp, Sarah's gathering basket contained a modest but respectable collection. The women's cooking area bustled with activity as they prepared the evening meal. Swift deer deliberately bumped Sarah as she passed, causing her to drop a basket of carefully gathered berries. The scattered fruit drew another round of laughter. Stan's tall woman intervened with a sharp word, silencing the mockery. She handed Sarah a pair of beautifully beaded moccasins, pointing to her worn, mud-caked shoes. First Apache clothes you make yourself, Morning light translated. But feet need protection now. These old pair from Stan's tall woman daughter, who died in childbirth. The gift's significance wasn't lost on Sarah. She removed her ruined shoes and slipped on the moccasins, surprised by their comfort. Thank you, she said, meeting the old woman's eyes directly. Stan's tall woman nodded, then spoke again. She says Mountain Wolf had dream of Bear Woman many moons ago. Morning light translated. Said she would bring new strength to people. Some believe, some not. And you? Sarah asked. What do you believe? Morning light considered the question. I believe Chief is wise, sees what others cannot. As evening approached, the hunting party returned. Mountain Wolf led the procession, a large deer slung across his horse. The successful hunt prompted celebration, women rushing to begin preparing the meat. Sarah stood apart, uncertain of her place. When Mountain Wolf's eyes found her, he nodded once in acknowledgement before turning to confer with the tribal elders. Later, As cooking fires burned low, Sarah sat alone near her small shelter, examining her raw hands. The day's labor had been harder than anything she'd experienced, yet there was strange satisfaction in the work accomplished. A shadow fell across her. Mountain Wolf stood holding a wooden bowl of stew, which he offered without speaking. "Thank you," Sarah said, accepting the food. He crouched nearby, observing her. "Hands hurt," he noted, gesturing. Sarah nodded. "Yes, but Stan's tall woman gave medicine." "Good." He looked at her moccasins. "Her gift shows respect. The women, they laugh at me," Sarah admitted. Mountain Wolf's expression didn't change. New things always cause laughter. Soon, no more laughing. "Swift Deer hates me." A flicker of recognition crossed his face. "She wanted to be Chief's wife. Not my choice." He rose to leave, then paused. "You work hard today." "Good." He gestured to her small shelter. "Sleep well, Bear Woman." As he walked away, Sarah called after him, "Why do you call me that?" Mountain Wolf turned back. "In dream, Bear Woman comes to tribe. Strong. Stubborn." The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "Like you." Sarah watched him return to his dwelling, wondering if she'd seen the ghost of a smile on his stoic face. Perhaps, she thought, examining her blistered hands, being compared to a bear wasn't such an insult after all. Weeks passed, each day bringing new lessons in Apache life. Sarah's hands hardened, developing calluses where blisters had once formed. Her skin darkened under the relentless sun, and muscles she never knew existed strengthened from constant work. She remained in the small shelter adjacent to Mountain Wolf's dwelling, a fact that prompted whispers throughout the camp. Apache brides typically joined their husbands immediately, but the chief made no move to hasten this transition, treating Sarah with formal respect during their limited interactions. One morning, the camp stirred with unusual excitement. Men gathered, checking weapons and supplies while women prepared travel provisions. "Buffalo hunt," Morning Light explained as she helped Sarah grind corn. "Very important. Meat for winter, hides for many things." Sarah watched Mountain Wolf directing preparations, his authority evident in the way warriors responded to his commands. He caught her observing and approached, his expression thoughtful. "Women come on buffalo hunt," he said. "Work after killing. You come too." Sarah hesitated. "I don't know what to do." Stan's tall woman teaches. "You learn." He studied her for a moment. "Need knife for work." From his belt, Mountain Wolf unsheathed a hunting knife with a bone handle carved with intricate symbols. He offered it to Sarah, handle first. "My knife when young warrior," he explained. "Good blade. Never fails." The gift's significance wasn't lost on Sarah. Tools were precious, especially one with personal history. "Thank you," she said, accepting it carefully. Mountain Wolf nodded once. "Be ready at sunrise." He turned to leave, then added, "You do well, Bear Woman. Learn fast." The hunting party departed at dawn, warriors on horseback, women and older children following with travois for hauling meat. Stan's tall woman motioned for Sarah to walk beside her, her weathered face set in its usual impassive expression. Through Morning Light's translations, Sarah learned they would travel 2 days to reach the buffalo grounds. That night, camped on the open plains, Sarah sat apart from the others, watching stars emerge in the vast sky. Mountain Wolf appeared silently, settling nearby. "Stars different from white people's stars?" he asked, his tone suggesting genuine curiosity. Sarah smiled slightly. "Same stars. Different stories about them, perhaps." He nodded as if this confirmed something. "Apache say stars are ancestors watching. What do your people say?" "Some believe they're other worlds like our Earth. Others think they're angels." "Angels? Spirit messengers from God," Sarah explained, realizing how strange the concept might sound. Mountain Wolf considered this. "Many gods or one God?" "My people believe in one God." He nodded thoughtfully. "Apache have many spirits. In everything." He gestured to the surrounding landscape. "In mountains, rivers, animals. Even in knife." He pointed to the weapon at her waist. "Has spirit. Choose you. Sarah's hand went to the knife's handle. Objects don't have spirits where I come from. Then your people blind, Mountain Wolf said simply. After a moment of silence, he added, tomorrow see buffalo. Many. You stay with women until killing done. Important. The following day, they crested a hill to behold a sight that stole Sarah's breath. Hundreds of buffalo grazing across the valley floor, dark shapes dotting the landscape to the horizon. Mountain Wolf gathered the warriors, speaking rapidly in Apache, gesturing toward different positions. The hunt required coordination and precision. Sarah realized, an intricate dance between predator and prey where mistakes could prove fatal. The women established a position downwind, preparing for the aftermath. Stan's tall woman showed Sarah the tools they would need: scrapers for hides, sharp knives for butchering, containers for collecting blood and organs. Blood valuable, morning light translated. Used for many things. Nothing wasted. The warriors disappeared into strategic positions, some mounted, others on foot with bows. A signal went up, a high, warbling cry, and suddenly the hunt exploded into motion. Warriors drove selected buffalo toward waiting hunters, the massive beasts thundering across the plain in panicked flight. Arrows flew with precision, bringing down targets away from the main herd to avoid a dangerous stampede. The efficiency was both beautiful and brutal. Within an hour, 7 buffalo lay dead on the plain, and the real work began. Women approached the fallen animals, offering prayers before beginning the butchering process. Sarah followed Stan's tall woman's lead, using Mountain Wolf's knife to help remove the thick hide from one buffalo. The work was grueling, blood-soaked, and physically demanding. Several times, Swift Deer made comments that caused other women to glance at Sarah with smirks. But when Sarah continued working without complaint, their expressions gradually shifted to something resembling respect. By late afternoon, Sarah's arms trembled with exhaustion, her dress stained dark with blood, yet she felt a strange satisfaction. Her size, so long a source of shame, provided strength for this labor. When she single-handedly dragged a heavy hide to the drying area, a task that normally required 2 women, even Swift Deer fell silent. Mountain Wolf observed from a distance as he directed the butchering operations. When their eyes met briefly, Sarah thought she detected approval in his usually stoic expression. That evening, the tribe feasted on fresh buffalo meat. For the first time, Sarah was offered a choice portion, the tongue, considered a delicacy. When she accepted it without hesitation and ate with evident appreciation, murmurs of approval rippled through the gathering. Later, as she cleaned Mountain Wolf's knife by firelight, he approached, carrying something wrapped in leather. You worked well today, he said, sitting beside her. Strong like bear. He offered the wrapped package. For you. Inside lay a belt and sheath for the knife, decorated with intricate beadwork. Now properly yours, he explained. Earned by work. As Sarah thanked him, she realized something had shifted. For the first time since joining the tribe, she felt not just tolerated, but valued, not despite her size, but because of the strength it provided. The hunting party returned to celebratory cries, the successful buffalo hunt ensuring the tribe would eat well through the coming months. Sarah worked alongside the other women, stretching hides and smoking strips of meat for preservation. Though her hands still blistered occasionally, her body had adapted to the labor, growing stronger each day. One afternoon, as Sarah collected firewood at the forest's edge, she spotted something metallic glinting in the undergrowth. Curiosity drew her closer. Half buried in the dirt lay a brass button bearing an eagle insignia, unmistakably from a U.S. cavalry uniform. Sarah stared at the small object, a sudden connection to her former world. She had seen such buttons on officers' uniforms in frontier towns, symbols of the advancing American presence pushing ever westward. What you find? Sarah startled at Mountain Wolf's voice behind her. She opened her palm, revealing the button. Cavalry, she said simply. His expression darkened as he took the button, examining it closely before slipping it into a pouch at his waist. Blue coats come closer. Not good. Have they troubled your people before? Mountain Wolf's jaw tightened. Make treaties. Break treaties. Push Apache from hunting grounds. He gestured toward the distant mountains. Say we must stay there. Small land. Not enough for all people. Sarah recognized the complex emotions crossing his usually impassive face. Anger, concern, determination. What will you do? Watch. Wait. His eyes met hers directly. You know blue coat ways. You tell me what they do. The question carried weight beyond its simple phrasing. He was asking for her loyalty, for knowledge that might protect his people against her former world. They establish forts first, Sarah said after a moment's hesitation. Then encourage settlers to build near them for protection. Once enough settlers arrive, they push native peoples further away. Mountain Wolf absorbed this information silently. You lived with blue coats? No. But my father. Sarah stopped, memories surfacing of her father's discussions with other men about the Indian problem and the manifest destiny of white expansion. My father traded with them sometimes. That evening, Mountain Wolf called a council of warriors and elders. Though women rarely attended such gatherings, he gestured for Sarah to join them. She sat quietly at the circle's edge, aware of curious and suspicious glances. Mountain Wolf produced the cavalry button, placing it in the center of the circle. A murmur ran through the assembled men. He spoke at length in Apache, occasionally gesturing toward Sarah. After the council, morning light found Sarah collecting water at the stream. Chief told elders you have knowledge of white soldiers, she said. Some think you spy. Chief say no, you his woman now. Sarah's stomach tightened. I would never bring harm to the tribe. Morning light studied her face. I believe. Others need time. She hesitated. Chief say you sleep in small shelter many moons now. People talk. Say you reject him. Heat rushed to Sarah's cheeks. It's not that. It's just, in my culture, marriage is different. How different? Sarah struggled to explain concepts of courtship, love, and choice to someone from a world where marriages were often arranged for practical reasons. We usually know each other first, before becoming intimate. Morning light looked perplexed. Chief give you time. Much respect. But soon you must decide. Be true wife or... She didn't finish the thought. That night, Sarah lay awake in her small shelter, contemplating her position. She had nowhere else to go. The wagon train long gone, no family or friends within hundreds of miles. More surprisingly, she realized she no longer wanted to leave. Despite its hardships, she had found something here she'd never experienced among her own people. Respect for her strength, value in her contributions. And Mountain Wolf, the enigmatic chief, remained a mystery in many ways, yet his quiet dignity and fairness had earned her grudging admiration. He had saved her life, protected her, given her place in his community. Was that not more consideration than any white man had shown her? A sound outside her shelter interrupted her thoughts. Mountain Wolf stood in the moonlight, his expression grave. Scouts found signs, he said without preamble. Blue coat soldiers. Small group. Watching. Sarah rose, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. How close? Half day's ride. His eyes held hers steadily. They search for something. Or someone. The implication was clear. You think they're looking for me? Perhaps. White woman with Apache. Unusual. Sarah considered this. I wasn't important enough for anyone to search for me. All white women important to blue coats. Good excuse for war. Mountain Wolf's voice held centuries of bitter experience. Need to know. If they come, what you do? It was the question that had hovered between them, unspoken until now. Where did her loyalty truly lie? Sarah thought of her mother's final cruel words, of years of ridicule and rejection. Then she thought of Stan's tall woman's patient teaching of the growing respect she'd earned among the tribe, of Mountain Wolf's quiet acceptance of her strength. This is my home now, she said simply. These are my people. Something shifted in Mountain Wolf's expression, a softening almost imperceptible in the moonlight. He nodded once. Tomorrow we move camp. Higher ground. Safer. As he turned to leave, Sarah called softly, Mountain Wolf. When he paused, she added, Thank you for finding me that day. He studied her for a long moment. Dreams showed way. Spirit knew before eyes saw. With those cryptic words, he disappeared into the darkness, leaving Sarah to wonder at the workings of fate that had brought her to this unexpected life. Autumn painted the landscape in russet and gold as the tribe prepared for their winter migration. After relocating to higher ground following the discovery of the cavalry button, Mountain Wolf had increased scouting patrols, but no further signs of soldiers appeared. Perhaps it had been merely a small reconnaissance party passing through, not specifically searching for Sarah. The evenings grew cooler, and activity in the camp intensified. Winter in the mountains demanded thorough preparation. Sarah worked alongside the other women, her hands now skilled at tasks that had once seemed impossible. Her command of Apache had improved as well, though she still relied on morning light for complex conversations. "We leave for winter camp when next moon full," Morning Light explained as they worked together, fashioning containers from buffalo bladders. "Valley protected from wind, near hot springs. Good place when snow comes." "How long will we stay there?" Sarah asked, carefully stretching the membrane. "Until spring flowers. 3, maybe 4 moons." Morning Light glanced at her speculatively. "Winter nights very cold. Not good to sleep alone." Sarah focused intently on her work, avoiding Morning Light's knowing gaze. The subject of her separate sleeping arrangements had become a frequent topic of gentle teasing among the women. Even Stan's tall woman had begun giving her meaningful looks whenever Mountain Wolf was nearby. Later that day, Sarah sat with several women working on winter clothing. Her sewing skills, adequate among white settlers, were rudimentary by Apache standards. Still, she had learned to craft serviceable garments, incorporating techniques from her previous life with Apache designs. An idea formed as she worked. In her small shelter, Sarah kept a bundle of fabric scraps, remnants of her torn calico dress and pieces of hide too small for typical use. That evening, she began a project that consumed her spare moments over the following days. She combined diamond patterns from Apache designs with the star pattern her grandmother had taught her, creating a hybrid quilt large enough to cover a sleeping platform. When the women noticed her project, several contributed small scraps of decorated hide or beadwork, even Swift Deer grudgingly offering a piece of beautifully tanned rabbit fur. "What is this thing?" Stan's tall woman asked through Morning Light's translation, examining the nearly completed quilt. "Where I come from, we make these for warmth in winter," Sarah explained. "Also for marriage beds." Stan's tall woman's weathered face creased in a rare smile as she understood the implication. She spoke rapidly to Morning Light. "She says creation shows your heart ready now." Morning Light translated. "Good timing before winter journey." As the tribe prepared to depart for their winter grounds, Sarah completed her quilt. The finished piece represented her journey, patterns from her past woven seamlessly with her new life, creating something unique that honored both worlds. On the eve of their departure, Sarah approached Mountain Wolf's dwelling. He sat outside, repairing a bough in the fading light. He looked up as her shadow fell across his work, his expression questioning. Sarah held out the folded quilt wordlessly. Mountain Wolf set aside his work and accepted the offering, carefully unfolding it to reveal the intricate design. His fingers traced the patterns, recognition dawning as he identified both Apache symbols and unfamiliar designs. "Stars," Sarah explained, pointing to the white settler pattern. "From my grandmother." Mountain Wolf studied the quilt, then met her gaze. "Two worlds together," he said. "Like you now." Sarah nodded, heart pounding. "In my culture, a woman makes this for her husband." Understanding filled his eyes. He stood slowly, still holding the quilt. "You ready now?" "Yes," Sarah said simply. That evening, for the first time, Sarah entered Mountain Wolf's dwelling not as a visitor but as a wife. The interior was sparsely furnished but meticulous, personal items arranged with purpose rather than decoration. A sleeping platform of raised earth covered with furs occupied one side. Mountain Wolf spread her quilt atop the furs, smoothing it with careful hands. When he turned to her, his customary reserve had softened. Their coming together was gentle, almost reverent. His hands tentative at first, as if expecting rejection, then growing more confident at her response. Sarah had feared awkwardness or pain, but found instead a surprising tenderness that belied his warrior's exterior. Afterward, as they lay beneath her quilt, Mountain Wolf's fingers traced idle patterns on her shoulder. "When I saw you first day," he said quietly, "you stood tall in sorrow, strong heart, like bear who takes arrow but still fights." Sarah turned to face him. "I was afraid that day, alone. Not alone now." His hand settled at the curve of her waist, neither avoiding nor emphasizing her ample form. "Bear woman has home." As dawn approached, Sarah woke to find Mountain Wolf already dressed. He knelt beside her, touching her cheek gently. "Tribe leaves for winter camp today. Long journey." Sarah nodded, surprised by the intimacy that had grown between them in a single night. Physical connection had fostered an emotional bond that weeks of cautious interaction had not. "I'll be ready," she promised. Mountain Wolf's mouth curved in a rare smile. "Know you will, wife." The word, spoken for the first time between them, settled around Sarah like a blanket, warm, protective, and surprisingly right. The tribe departed with the rising sun, a line of people, horses, and travois stretching across the golden landscape. Sarah walked beside Mountain Wolf's horse, her steps light despite the heavy pack she carried. For the first time since being abandoned by her family, she moved forward not with resignation but with purpose, toward a winter that promised not just survival, but belonging. The winter camp nestled in a sheltered valley proved as hospitable as morning light had promised. Natural hot springs provided warmth and comfort, while dense pine forests offered protection from bitter winds. The tribe settled into winter rhythms, men hunting smaller game, women processing food stores and crafting items needed for the coming year. Sarah's status had shifted subtly since officially becoming Mountain Wolf's wife. Women who had once avoided her now sought her company, eager to learn about white settlers' ways. Even Swift Deer's hostility had tempered to mere coolness. One crisp morning, as Sarah worked with Stan's tall woman sorting medicinal plants, riders galloped into camp. Blood streaked one warrior's arm, and their urgent calls brought Mountain Wolf running from a council meeting. The warriors spoke rapidly, gesturing eastward. Though Sarah's Apache had improved, their excited speech outpaced her comprehension. Mountain Wolf listened intently, his expression darkening before he issued swift commands. Morning light appeared at Sarah's side. "Comanche raid wagon train," she explained. "2 sons ride from here. Many dead. Apache scouts saw. Now Comanche may come this way." Warriors prepared for possible conflict while women gathered children close to camp. Mountain Wolf approached Sarah, his manner businesslike despite the concern in his eyes. "Comanche not friends to Apache," he explained. "Sometimes raid our camps. Take women, children." He handed her the knife she'd carried since the buffalo hunt. "Stay close to center. Protect smaller ones if needed." Before he could leave, Sarah caught his arm. "Let me help with medicines. I've learned much from Stan's tall woman." Mountain Wolf hesitated, then nodded. "Good thinking. Prepare for wounded." He gathered a party of warriors and rode out, leaving the camp in tense anticipation. Sarah worked alongside Stan's tall woman, preparing poultices and bandages. Hours passed with no word, darkness falling like a shroud over the anxious camp. Near midnight, sentries called out. Horses approached, Mountain Wolf's party returning, but they weren't alone. Sarah rushed forward with other women as warriors dismounted, some supporting injured comrades. "Comanche gone," Mountain Wolf announced. "Found survivors. Need help." Behind the warriors came horses pulling makeshift travois. Upon them lay wounded settlers, 2 men and a woman, their faces pale beneath dirt and blood. Sarah gasped as she recognized the woman's dress style, the same as the wagon train that had abandoned her months before. "Sarah?" Stan's tall woman touched her arm, concern evident despite the language barrier. "I know these people," Sarah managed in halting Apache. "My old tribe. Understanding dawned in the old woman's eyes. She nodded once, then gestured toward the wounded. Work needed doing regardless of history. Sarah helped carry the injured to a shelter. As she cut away a blood-soaked shirt from one man's shoulder, his eyes fluttered open, widening in shock at her face. "Mrs. Jenkins?" he whispered hoarsely. Sarah recognized him now, Mr. Peterson, who had traveled 2 wagons behind her family. "Save your strength," she replied in English. "You're safe now. Indians attacked at dawn," he mumbled. "Killed so many. Took everything. These are Apache, not Comanche," Sarah explained, cleaning his wound. "They found you and brought you here for help." Confusion clouded his features. "You're with Indians now? We thought you dead." Sarah's hands stilled. "My family abandoned me. These people took me in." Before he could respond, Mountain Wolf appeared at the shelter entrance. His gaze moved from Sarah to the wounded settler, expression unreadable. "He will live?" he asked in Apache. Sarah nodded. "The wound is clean. No poison." Mountain Wolf switched to his limited English. "More survivors. Child. No hurt. Much fear." He stepped aside, revealing a small figure clutched in a warrior's arms. A girl no more than 5 years old, her blonde hair matted with dirt, blue eyes wide with terror. "Mother? Father?" Sarah asked quietly. Mountain Wolf shook his head. "All dead. Only child lives." The warrior set the girl down, but she remained frozen, small body trembling violently. Sarah approached slowly, crouching to the child's level. "Hello, little one," she said gently in English. "My name is Sarah. You're safe now." The girl's eyes darted frantically between Sarah and the Apache warriors. "Indians," she whispered fearfully. "Bad." "No, sweetheart. These Indians are good. They helped you." Sarah extended her hand. "Are you hungry? We have food." The child hesitated, then launched herself into Sarah's arms, small body racked with sobs. Sarah held her close, murmuring soothing words. Mountain Wolf watched the interaction thoughtfully. When the girl's sobs subsided, he approached cautiously and crouched beside them. From his pouch, he withdrew a small carved wooden horse, offering it to the child. "For you," he said in English. "Strong pony." The girl regarded him warily, then reached for the carving with tentative fingers. Mountain Wolf's face softened as she clutched the toy to her chest. "What happens to child?" Sarah asked him in Apache. "Comanche would take as slave. Apache do not," he replied. "When settlers healed, they take to fort." Sarah looked down at the girl, now examining the wooden horse with cautious interest. "And if they cannot?" Mountain Wolf understood her meaning. "Child needs mother. You good mother." That night, as the little girl slept curled against her side, Sarah found herself in an unexpected position. Bridge between 2 worlds, responsible for explaining each to the other. The settlers viewed their Apache rescuers with suspicious gratitude, while many tribe members regarded the newcomers as potential threats. As Mountain Wolf joined her outside the shelter, Sarah spotted something glinting at his waist. A silver locket on a delicate chain, clearly from the wagon train. "What's that?" she asked, pointing. Mountain Wolf handed it to her. "Found on ground. Open, has faces inside." Sarah worked the tiny clasp, revealing a daguerreotype of a smiling couple, likely the child's parents. She closed it gently, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. "Her family," she explained. "All she has left of them now." Mountain Wolf nodded solemnly. "Then must keep safe for her. When older, we'll need to remember." Sarah studied her husband's face in the firelight. "You understand loss." "All Apache understand," he replied simply. "We lose land, people, ways. Still we continue." He gestured to the sleeping child. "She will continue too, with help." Sarah slipped the locket around her neck for safekeeping. "I'll call her Hope," she decided, "because that's what children bring, even in darkness." The winter deepened, snow blanketing the valley in pristine white. The wounded settlers recovered slowly under Sarah's and Stan's tall woman's care. Mr. Peterson and the others remained wary of their Apache hosts, but necessity fostered a fragile coexistence. Little Hope, however, adapted with the resilience of childhood, initially clinging to Sarah's skirts in terror whenever Apache men approached. She gradually began watching their activities with cautious curiosity. Mountain Wolf, to Sarah's surprise, showed remarkable patience with the child, whittling small animal figures that appeared mysteriously beside her sleeping place each morning. "She learns Apache words faster than you," he teased Sarah one evening as they watched Hope playing a counting game with Apache children, her high voice attempting the unfamiliar syllables. "Children's minds bend easier than adults," Sarah replied, leaning comfortably against his shoulder. Their relationship had deepened during the winter months, physical intimacy fostering emotional closeness neither had anticipated. One morning, Stan's tall woman summoned Sarah to her dwelling. Inside, several elders sat in a circle around a small fire. The medicine woman gestured for Sarah to join them, her expression unusually solemn. "Important ceremony soon," Morning Light translated, settling beside Sarah. "Ghost dance. To speak with ancestors, see visions of future. Stan's tall woman says you should participate." Sarah hesitated. Though she'd observed many Apache ceremonies, she'd never been invited to participate in sacred rituals. "Why me?" After Morning Light translated the question, Stan's tall woman spoke at length, her gnarled fingers tracing patterns in the air. "She says you stand between worlds. Apache spirits know you now, but your ancestors' spirits also follow you. In Ghost Dance, maybe both speak." Morning Light lowered her voice. "Great honor. Some think you not ready." Sarah understood the significance. Despite months living as an Apache woman, some tribal members still viewed her as an outsider. Participation in a sacred ceremony represented acceptance at the deepest level. "Tell her I'm honored," Sarah said. "What must I do to prepare?" The preparations consumed 4 days. Sarah fasted, drank bitter herbal teas prepared by Stan's tall woman, and spent hours in a sweat lodge, her body purified by steam and prayer. Throughout the process, she caught glimpses of swift deer watching with narrowed eyes. On the ceremony's eve, Stan's tall woman presented Sarah with a small painted drum. "For calling spirits," Morning Light explained. "She made specially for you. Two-world drum." The drum's surface bore intricate designs, half in traditional Apache patterns, half in geometrical shapes Sarah recognized from quilts she'd sewn as a girl. The merger of symbols touched her deeply. That night, the tribe gathered in the ceremonial clearing. Firelight cast dancing shadows as elders took their places. Hope watched wide-eyed from the women's side until Sarah settled her with an older girl who had become her frequent playmate. Mountain Wolf, adorned in ceremonial regalia, acknowledged Sarah with a subtle nod as she took her place in the circle. The rhythmic pounding of drums began, first slowly, then building in intensity until the sound resonated in Sarah's chest like a second heartbeat. Stan's tall woman rose, her aged body transformed by the firelight into something otherworldly. She began a shuffling dance around the circle, chanting in a voice that seemed to emerge from the earth itself. One by one, dancers joined her, moving clockwise around the great fire. When Sarah's turn came, she clutched her painted drum and stepped into the circle. The persistent rhythm carried her feet forward, her body remembering steps she'd observed but never performed. Around and around the dancers moved, the boundaries between individuals blurring as they became a single flowing entity. Hours passed, yet fatigue never touched Sarah. The fasting, the herbs, the hypnotic drums, all worked to shift her consciousness. The faces around her seemed to change, ancient features superimposing over living ones. Was that her grandmother's profile glimpsed across the flames? Her father's eyes watching from the darkness? The tempo increased. Sarah's drum joined the collective voice, her hands moving of their own accord. Something was building, a pressure in the air, a thinning of the veil between worlds. Her vision blurred, tears streaming unbidden down her face. Then she saw them, figures moving among the dancers, transparent forms glowing with inner light. Ancient Apache warriors and matriarchs circled alongside the living, their expressions solemn yet peaceful. And there, impossibly, stood her grandmother, the woman who had taught her to quilt, to endure, to find strength in being different. The apparition smiled, reaching out a translucent hand that passed through Sarah's cheek like cool mist. Words formed in Sarah's mind, not in English or Apache, but in pure understanding. "You have found your true home, child." Sarah stumbled, overcome. Strong hands steadied her. Mountain Wolf, his eyes reflecting firelight and something more profound. "You see them," he said. Not a question. "Yes," she whispered. "My grandmother. And your ancestors." He nodded, unsurprised. Ghost dance opens eyes between worlds. Few white people ever see. The ceremony continued until dawn lightened the eastern sky. As the last chants faded, dancers collapsed in exhaustion, many describing visions of ancestors, prophecies, spiritual guidance. Sarah sat wrapped in her quilt, still trembling from the experience. Mountain Wolf settled beside her, his ceremonial paint streaked with sweat. "Your spirit strong," he said simply. "Ancestors accept you." Both sides. Before Sarah could respond, Swift Deer approached, her expression conflicted. She spoke briefly, her words directed at Mountain Wolf but her eyes on Sarah. "What did she say?" Sarah asked when the woman departed. "She saw you with ancestors in vision," he translated. "Says bear woman truly Apache now."
Spirit provas.
He smiled slightly. Coming from her, high praise. As they walked back to their dwelling, Hope ran to meet them, chattering excitedly about staying up late to watch the ghost party. Sarah lifted the child into her arms, feeling the small heart beating against her own. "Did you see ghosts?" Hope asked innocently. Sarah exchanged glances with Mountain Wolf over the child's head. "Yes," she answered truthfully. "Family from long ago." "My mama and papa ghosts too now?" Hope asked, her voice small. Sarah's arms tightened around the child. "Yes, little one. But they watch over you, just like my grandmother watches me." Hope considered this seriously. "Can Apache ghosts watch white children?" Mountain Wolf touched the girl's blonde hair gently. "Spirits see no difference," he said. "Only hearts." Spring brought the first crocuses pushing through melting snow, their purple heads harbingers of warmer days ahead. As the tribe prepared to leave winter camp, the recovered settlers departed for the nearest fort, guided by 2 Apache warriors. Mr. Peterson had asked Sarah to return with them, his expression disbelieving when she refused. "These savages have bewitched you," he'd muttered. "Or Stockholm Syndrome like those Swedish hostages." Sarah had smiled, remembering a time when she might have thought the same. "They're my family now," she'd explained simply. "My husband, my daughter, my people." Hope had remained with Sarah and Mountain Wolf, the child herself refusing to leave when offered the chance. "Sarah is my mother now," she declared with the absolute certainty of childhood. "And Mountain Wolf makes me horses." As spring advanced, the tribe returned to their summer hunting grounds. Sarah's second year with the Apache found her confidently performing tasks that had once seemed impossible. Her Apache language skills had improved dramatically, though certain concepts still required Morning Light's translation. The first warning came with a hunting party's return. A young warrior collapsed from his horse, his skin burning with fever, body covered in small red pustules. Sarah recognized the symptoms immediately: smallpox, the scourge that had devastated native populations since Europeans' arrival. "Keep everyone away," she ordered, switching to English in her urgency. Mountain Wolf understood enough to immediately quarantine the sick warrior. That night, a council gathered outside the infected man's isolated shelter. Sarah spoke through Morning Light, explaining the disease's nature and danger. "My people call it smallpox," she said. "It passes from person to person through touch, through breath. Many Indians have died from it because—" She hesitated, searching for a diplomatic explanation. "Because white bodies know this enemy," Mountain Wolf finished for her. "Indian bodies do not." Sarah nodded. "I had this sickness as a child. My father was a healer who learned from books. He believed everyone should face the weak version to protect from the strong. She touched the faint scars on her arm. I cannot get sick again. I can help care for others safely. Stan's tall woman spoke at length. Morning Light translating, she asks if you know medicines for this white disease. Some, Sarah admitted. Fever bark helps reduce heat. Clean water is important. Separate the sick from the healthy immediately. Mountain Wolf made the decision. Bear Woman and Stan's tall woman will care for sick. No one else goes near. Within days, 5 more warriors fell ill. Then women and children began showing symptoms. Sarah worked tirelessly alongside Stan's tall woman, combining her limited medical knowledge from her father with the medicine woman's herbal wisdom. They created a separate camp for the infected, Sarah moving between patients with relentless energy. She showed Stan's tall woman how to use willow bark to reduce fever, while learning from the older woman which local plants helped soothe the painful pustules. We need a medicine bundle for each family, Sarah explained, demonstrating how to assemble protective herbs, and teach everyone to cover their mouths when coughing. As the epidemic spread, Sarah lost track of days, catching sleep in brief intervals between tending patients. Hope remained safely isolated with Morning Light, though the child cried nightly for Sarah. 2 weeks into the outbreak, Mountain Wolf himself collapsed while organizing hunting parties to replace the warriors too ill to provide food. When Sarah found him burning with fever, the characteristic rash just beginning, her heart nearly stopped. No, she whispered, helping him to the quarantine area. Not you too. For 3 days, Mountain Wolf's fever raged unchecked. The pustules covered his body, particularly thick across his chest and face. Sarah barely left his side, bathing him with cool water, forcing liquids between his cracked lips, praying to her grandmother's god and Apache spirits alike. On the 4th night, when his breathing grew labored and his pulse weakened, Sarah felt desperation rising like floodwater. She retrieved her medicine bundle, a leather pouch containing elements from both cultures, her father's simple remedies and Stan's tall woman's sacred herbs. Working feverishly, she created a poultice combining willow bark, feverfew, and a bitter root Stan's tall woman had shown her. She placed it on Mountain Wolf's chest, then began singing. Not an Apache healing song, but a hymn her grandmother had taught her, the only prayer she could remember completely. Throughout the night, Sarah alternated cool cloths with the poultice, her voice growing hoarse from constant singing. Near dawn, Mountain Wolf's fever broke, his body drenched in sweat but cooler to the touch. When his eyes finally opened, focusing slowly on her face, Sarah couldn't stop the tears that had been held at bay by necessity. You came back, she whispered. Mountain Wolf's hand weakly sought hers. Bear Woman called. Spirit heard. The epidemic claimed 17 lives, a devastating toll for the small tribe, yet far fewer than might have perished without Sarah's knowledge combined with Stan's tall woman's wisdom. As survivors recovered, many bearing the permanent scars of the disease, a new name spread through the camp, Strong Heart Woman. They called Sarah now. One evening, as Mountain Wolf sat outside their dwelling, his strength gradually returning, he watched Sarah preparing a medicine bundle for a recovering child. Your father's knowledge, Apache plants, he observed. 2-world medicine. Many live because of this. Sarah tied the bundle with sinew. I wish I knew more. My father had books with better treatments. Next trading season we find books, Mountain Wolf promised. Learn more medicine. Sarah looked up, surprised by the practicality of his solution. You would seek white man's knowledge? Knowledge has no color, he replied simply. Only use matters. He touched the fading pustules on his face. These scars show Strong Heart Woman's power. 2-world healing. As Sarah moved among the recovering tribe members, she realized something fundamental had shifted. No longer was she merely accepted as Mountain Wolf's wife or tolerated as a curious outsider. The shared suffering of the epidemic had forged bonds deeper than any ceremony. Even Swift Deer, who had survived a severe case, acknowledged her with genuine respect. Strong Heart Woman saved my life, she told others openly. The bear spirit gives her power. Sarah accepted the name with humility, understanding the responsibility it carried. She had crossed an invisible threshold, from being a white woman living among Apache to becoming truly one of them, her different knowledge now recognized as strength rather than strangeness. Summer brought lush growth to the high plains and renewed strength to the tribe. The smallpox epidemic had weakened their numbers but strengthened their unity. Sarah moved confidently through camp, her position as Mountain Wolf's wife and tribal healer earning her respect from even the most traditional members. Hope thrived in her new life, her golden hair often decorated with Apache beads, her small voice chattering in a fluid mixture of English and Apache. She shadowed Sarah during healing work and followed Mountain Wolf when he performed chief's duties within camp, absorbing both cultures with a child's adaptability. One bright morning, a hunting party prepared to depart for the eastern foothills where deer gathered in the summer heat. Mountain Wolf, fully recovered though bearing pockmarks across his once smooth skin, led the group. "I come too," Sarah said, surprising him as she approached with her own mount prepared. Since the epidemic, she'd rarely left camp, focused on caring for those still recovering. Mountain Wolf raised an eyebrow. "Hunting men's work. I need fresh healing plants," she explained. "And after so much sickness." She didn't complete the thought, but understanding passed between them. After weeks confined to sickbeds, the open plains called to her spirit. He nodded. "Stay close to warriors." The hunting party moved eastward through rolling grasslands. Sarah reveled in the wind against her face, the rhythm of hoofbeats, the vast sky arching overhead. They crossed a small river, following game trails into wooded foothills. By midday, they'd spotted a promising deer herd. Mountain Wolf signaled for the party to separate, warriors circling to position themselves downwind. Sarah remained with two younger men, gathering medicinal plants while the hunters prepared. The crack of a rifle shattered the silence. Not Apache weapons, they hunted with bows for silence. Sarah froze, fingers still grasping a yarrow plant. The warriors beside her instantly melted into the underbrush as distant shouts echoed through the trees. "Halt! U.S. cavalry!" Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. Through the trees, she glimpsed blue uniforms, the glint of brass buttons, horses with military saddles. A patrol, likely from the fort where the recovered settlers had been escorted months before. More shouts came as Apache warriors emerged from cover. Arrows knocked but not drawn. Mountain Wolf rode forward, his posture deliberately non-threatening yet proud. Sarah couldn't hear the exchange, but the tension was visible in every line of both groups. Without conscious decision, she urged her horse forward. As she emerged from the trees, gasps rose from the cavalry soldiers. "A white woman," one called. "Sir, they've got a captive." The cavalry officer, a lieutenant by his insignia, stared in shock as Sarah rode to Mountain Wolf's side. She wore Apache clothing, her hair braided in tribal style, but her fair skin and features were unmistakably European. "Ma'am, are you being held against your will?" the lieutenant called, his hand moving to his sidearm. Sarah responded in clear English. "I am not a captive, Lieutenant. I am here by choice." Disbelief crossed the officer's face. "Ma'am, if you're under duress." "I assure you, I am not," Sarah interrupted firmly. "I am the wife of Chief Mountain Wolf and a healer to this tribe." The lieutenant studied her face. Then suddenly his expression shifted to recognition. "Wait, Sarah Jenkins? From the Minnesota wagon train." Sarah's breath caught. "How do you know my name?" "Your father's been searching for you for months, ma'am." He reached slowly into his jacket, producing a folded paper. "May I approach?" Mountain Wolf tensed beside her, but Sarah nodded. "Yes, but alone and unarmed." The lieutenant handed his pistol to a sergeant, then walked his horse forward slowly. He extended the paper to Sarah, who unfolded it with trembling fingers. A crude sketch of her face stared back, alongside printed text. "Missing. Sarah Elizabeth Jenkins, 19 years, daughter of Dr. Thomas Jenkins. Last seen near Fort Laramie. Reward offered for information." Below was a fort address for her father. He's been posting these at every outpost between here and St. Louis, the lieutenant explained. Convinced you were taken by Indians. Seems he was half right. Sarah stared at the paper, emotions warring within her. My father abandoned me with the wagon train. Said I was too heavy to take through the mountain passes. The lieutenant's expression sobered. Ma'am, according to Dr. Jenkins, he left you with the Bradshaw family while he scouted ahead. When he returned, the train had moved on without authorization, and you with it. He's been tracking the train and searching for you since. Sarah's world tilted. All these months, she'd believed herself discarded, unwanted. That's not what they told me, she whispered. Politics in wagon trains can get ugly, the lieutenant said quietly. Dr. Jenkins made enemies questioning the trainmaster's judgment on several occasions. Mountain Wolf touched her arm, concern evident despite his limited English. What paper say? Sarah translated the essence, her voice unsteady. The Apache chief studied her face. You wish see father? Before she could answer, hoofbeats pounded through the trees as more cavalry appeared. A full patrol of 12 men, rifles ready. The lieutenant's face tightened. Major Davis, he muttered. Ma'am, this just got complicated. A heavily mustached officer rode forward, surveying the scene with cold eyes. Lieutenant Parker, report. Why are you parleying with hostiles? Sir, we've located Sarah Jenkins, the lieutenant explained. Dr. Jenkins' missing daughter. The major's gaze fixed on Sarah, taking in her Apache clothing and position beside Mountain Wolf. His lip curled slightly. Appears she's gone native. Another Stockholm case. Sir, she claims. I don't care what she claims. The major cut him off. Apache are restricted to the Western Territories by treaty. They're in violation being this far east. He addressed Sarah directly. Mrs. Jenkins, you'll come with us. These Indians will return to their assigned lands immediately. Mountain Wolf understood enough English to grasp the threat. Warriors tensed around him as he replied with quiet dignity. This hunting ground Apache land. Many generations. The major's hand moved to his holster. Not anymore, Chief. New treaty signed last month. This is U.S. territory now. Sarah recognized the precipice they balanced upon. One wrong move would spark violence. She placed her hand on Mountain Wolf's arm, feeling the tension in his muscles. Please, she said to both men. Let me translate. Let me explain. As sun climbed higher in the summer sky, two worlds faced each other across a narrow clearing. One advancing with unstoppable momentum, the other fighting for survival with every passing season. And Sarah stood between them, a woman of both worlds and neither, searching desperately for words to prevent bloodshed. Tension crackled like lightning in the summer air. Sarah positioned herself physically between Mountain Wolf and Major Davis, her heart pounding but her voice steady as she translated between Apache and English. The chief says his people have hunted these lands for generations, she explained to the major. He asks what treaty you speak of, as no Apache representatives signed any new agreements. Major Davis's mustache twitched with irritation. The Territorial Indian Accord was signed by designated tribal representatives last month. All indigenous peoples must relocate to the western reservation areas by autumn. Sarah translated, watching Mountain Wolf's face darken with each word. His response came swift and sharp. He says no true Apache would sign away hunting grounds, Sarah conveyed. Those who signed were not authorized to speak for his band. That's not my concern, Major Davis replied dismissively. The treaty is ratified. My orders are to escort all Indians back to designated territories. Lieutenant Parker cleared his throat. Sir, perhaps we could allow them to complete their hunt? As a gesture of goodwill. Goodwill. The major's laugh held no humor. Lieutenant, goodwill doesn't pacify savages. Only shows weakness. He addressed Mountain Wolf directly. You have 2 days to move your people west of the Broken Rock River line. After that, any Apache found in this territory will be considered hostile. Sarah translated, her stomach nodding at Mountain Wolf's expression. A mixture of rage and resignation she'd never seen before. He had witnessed this pattern too many times. Promises made, boundaries drawn, then redrawn whenever white settlers wanted more land. "And you, Mrs. Jenkins," the major continued, "will return with us to the fort. Your father can be notified of your recovery." Before Sarah could respond, Mountain Wolf spoke, his voice carrying authority despite the language barrier. Sarah translated. "He says I am Apache now, wife of the chief. My choice where I go." Major Davis's face hardened. "Stockholm Syndrome, as I suspected. The doctor mentioned you were impressionable." His eyes flicked dismissively over her figure. "You'll thank us once you're back among civilized people." Sarah felt heat rise in her cheeks, recognizing the familiar judgment. "I am not a prisoner, Major. These people took me in when my own abandoned me." "Your father never abandoned you, ma'am," Lieutenant Parker interjected gently. "He's been searching for months." The revelation still shocked Sarah. Had her mother known? The wagon master? How much had been deliberate deception? Major Davis interrupted her thoughts. "Regardless, we're returning to the fort. You'll accompany us voluntarily, or I'll have you escorted." Mountain Wolf tensed beside her, and the Apache warriors subtly shifted positions. Though outnumbered, they would fight if necessary, a confrontation that would end in massacre. "Wait," Sarah said quickly. "I'll go to the fort, speak with the commanding officer about this treaty. But first, I must return to our camp." She met the major's suspicious gaze. "My daughter is there, a white child orphaned in a Comanche raid whom we adopted." This information visibly startled the soldiers. Lieutenant Parker leaned forward. "There's a white child in the Apache camp?" "Yes. Hope. She's 5 years old now, blonde hair, blue eyes. We saved her when Comanches attacked her wagon train last winter." The revelation shifted the dynamic subtly. A white woman choosing to live with Indians could be dismissed as mentally unstable, but a white child among them complicated the narrative. Major Davis conferred briefly with his officers before turning back to Sarah. "We'll escort you to your camp, retrieve the child, and continue to the fort." "No," Sarah said firmly. "My husband and I will return to camp alone and meet your patrol at the Eastern Creek crossing tomorrow. I give you my word." "The word of a woman living with savages?" the major scoffed. "The word of Dr. Thomas Jenkins' daughter," Sarah countered, straightening to her full height. "A gentleman's agreement, Major. Surely you recognize one." The reference to her father's status gave the officer pause. After a tense moment, he nodded curtly. "Tomorrow at midday, the creek crossing. If you're not there, we'll come looking with reinforcements." As the cavalry patrol departed, Sarah released a shuddering breath. Mountain Wolf studied her face. "You go to White Fort? Leave Apache?" "No," Sarah said immediately, then hesitated. "I don't know. I need to understand this treaty. Speak with the commanding officer." She touched his arm. "And my father. I thought he abandoned me, but if he's been searching all this time." Mountain Wolf's expression remained guarded. "White men speak with forked tongue. Promise one thing, do another." "Not all white men," Sarah said quietly. "Just as not all Apache are the same." They rode back to camp in troubled silence. Upon their return, Sarah was immediately surrounded. First by Hope rushing into her arms, then by concerned tribal members sensing something amiss. That evening, around the council fire, Mountain Wolf relayed the encounter while Sarah added details and translated complex points. The news of the treaty sent ripples of anger and fear through the assembled elders. "What is Strong Heart Woman's thinking?" Stan's Tall Woman asked through Morning Light's translation. "Your heart speaks Apache now or white?" Sarah looked around the circle of faces, people who had become family, a way of life she had embraced. Then she thought of her father searching for months, believing her captured or dead. "My heart is torn," she admitted. "I am Apache now, but the father who raised me believes me lost. And this treaty, I need to know its true words, not just what soldiers claim it says." Mountain Wolf spoke with the measured cadence of a leader weighing grave decisions. "Strong Heart Woman has medicine knowledge from both worlds. Maybe also wisdom to speak with white chiefs. He looked at her directly. You go. Learn treaty words. See father. Then decide where heart belongs. Later, in their dwelling, Sarah prepared a small travel pack while Mountain Wolf watched silently. Hope slept nearby, unaware of the turmoil surrounding her adopted parents. Will you take the child? Mountain Wolf finally asked. Sarah paused, her hands stilling on the medicine pouch she was packing. No. Hope stays here, safe with our people. She met his eyes. With her father. Something softened in Mountain Wolf's expression. You return. I know this. How can you be sure? Sarah whispered. When even I am uncertain? He touched the bear carving that still hung at her neck. Dreams showed Bear Woman belongs with Apache. Not just my dream, many dreams. His hand moved to rest over her heart. Spirit knows true home, even when mind questions. Sarah covered his hand with hers. I'll return with information about the treaty. Perhaps there's a way to negotiate better terms. As she settled beside him for what might be their last night together, Sarah's mind whirled with memories. Her mother's cruel dismissal, suspicion, Stan's tall woman's patient teaching, Mountain Wolf's quiet strength. The path that had seemed a tragedy had led her to acceptance she'd never known before. Yet the thought of her father searching desperately all these months pulled at another part of her heart. The daughter who had once sought approval from parents who seemed perpetually disappointed in her. Between these worlds, Sarah would have to find her true path, and soon. Dawn painted the eastern sky in amber and rose as Sarah prepared to depart. Hope clung to her, small face buried against Sarah's buckskin dress. You come back? The child asked, voice muffled against the fabric. Yes, little one, Sarah promised, stroking the blonde hair adorned with Apache beads. I'm going to make sure our home stays safe. Mountain Wolf stood nearby, his expression inscrutable as tribal members gathered to witness Sarah's departure. Many offered small tokens, a feather, a carved bead, a whispered blessing, each a thread binding her to return. Stan's tall woman approached last, pressing a medicine pouch into Sarah's hands. For protection, Morning Light translated. She says white world has different sicknesses, different dangers. Sarah embraced the old woman who had become like a mother to her. Tell her I'll carry her wisdom with me. As Sarah mounted her horse, she noticed Swift Deer watching from the edge of the gathering, her expression unreadable. Though relations between them had improved since the smallpox epidemic, an undercurrent of tension remained. Sarah nodded acknowledgement. Swift Deer returned the gesture stiffly. Mountain Wolf rode with Sarah to the agreed meeting place, both mostly silent, words inadequate for the uncertainty ahead. At the creek crossing, they spotted the cavalry patrol waiting on the opposite bank. Remember who you are now, strong heart woman, Mountain Wolf said as they paused beyond the soldier's view. Not just Sarah Jenkins. Sarah touched his cheek, fingers tracing the smallpox scars that marked his once smooth skin. I will return before the new moon, with news of the treaty. His eyes held hers intently. If soldiers speak false, if danger comes, Apache moved to summer hunting grounds near Sacred Mountain. Find us there. With a final embrace, Sarah rode toward the waiting patrol. She didn't look back, knowing her resolve might waver at the sight of Mountain Wolf watching her ride away. Lieutenant Parker greeted her with formal courtesy, while Major Davis merely nodded curtly. The Apache chief didn't accompany you? The major asked, scanning the tree line suspiciously. He returned to prepare our people for possible relocation, Sarah replied, choosing her words carefully. Depending on what I learn about this treaty. The journey to Fort Laramie took 2 days, during which Sarah observed the changing landscape with new eyes. Settlements had sprung up where only wilderness had existed when she traveled with the wagon train. Progress, white settlers called it. Invasion, the Apache would say, both true from different perspectives. Fort Laramie rose from the plains like an alien structure, all right angles and rigid boundaries where Sarah had grown accustomed to the organic, flowing designs of Apache dwellings. The American flag snapped in the breeze above wooden walls as their party approached the gates. Word of their arrival spread quickly. Soldiers and civilians gathered to stare at Sarah in her Apache clothing, whispers following her passage. Gone native and savage woman reached her ears, but she held her head high, remembering Mountain Wolf's dignity when faced with prejudice. Colonel Harrison, the fort commander, received her in his office, his gray eyebrows rising at her appearance. "Mrs. Jenkins, we've heard much about you. Your father will be overjoyed to learn of your recovery." "I was never lost, Colonel," Sarah corrected firmly. "I've been living with the mountain Apache by choice after my wagon train abandoned me." The colonel exchanged glances with Major Davis. "Yes, well, Stockholm Syndrome is well documented in captivity cases. After you've had proper food and rest among your own kind." "My own kind?" Sarah interrupted. "Colonel, I am wife to Chief Mountain Wolf and mother to an orphan child our tribe rescued. I am here only to understand the terms of this new treaty and to see my father." Colonel Harrison's expression hardened slightly. "The territorial accord is quite clear, Mrs. Jenkins. All indigenous peoples must relocate to designated reservations by autumn harvest. These are fertile lands needed for American settlement." "May I see this accord?" Sarah asked. "My husband's band was never consulted." The colonel hesitated, then retrieved a document from a cabinet. "Representatives from major tribes signed on behalf of all bands," he explained, spreading the papers before her. Sarah scanned the document, recognizing immediately that the terms were even more restrictive than Major Davis had indicated. The reservation was barely a quarter the size of the Apache's traditional territory, much of it unsuitable for sustainable hunting or farming. "These signatures," she said, pointing to marks beside tribal designations. "Who are these men?" "None are from Mountain Wolf's band. Agency Indians," Major Davis supplied. "Tribal members who understand progress is inevitable." "You mean those willing to surrender for promises of food and supplies?" Sarah translated bitterly. "This isn't a negotiation. It's coercion." Colonel Harrison's jaw tightened. "Mrs. Jenkins, manifest destiny waits for no one. The westward expansion of our great nation." A commotion outside interrupted him. The office door burst open as a middle-aged man with silver-streaked hair and familiar eyes rushed in. "Sarah?" he gasped, staring at her as though seeing a ghost. "Father," Sarah whispered, suddenly overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. The child who had sought his approval, the woman who had found her strength without it. Dr. Thomas Jenkins crossed the room in 3 strides, embracing her tightly. "My God, I thought you were dead," he murmured against her hair. "When the Bradshaws said they'd left you behind." Sarah stiffened, pulling back to see his face. "They told me you abandoned me, said I was too heavy for the mountain crossing." Her father's expression transformed from joy to fury. "Those lying?" He caught himself. "Bradshaw wanted your mother's inheritance. Convinced her you'd slow the train through the passes." His eyes filled with pain. "By the time I returned from scouting, they'd left. Your mother believed you were with me." The revelation struck Sarah like physical blow. Her entire life with the Apache had begun with a deliberate deception, not parental rejection. Yet that painful beginning had led to a life more fulfilling than she'd ever known before. As her father studied her Apache clothing with confusion, Sarah felt worlds colliding. Within her heart, "Father, there's much to explain." Back at the Apache camp, illness spread with alarming speed. Children first, then elders, violent stomach sickness, bodies weakened by constant vomiting and fever. Stan's tall woman worked tirelessly, but without Sarah's additional knowledge, she struggled to combat the mysterious ailment. 3 children died within 2 days, then an elder. Mountain Wolf knelt beside a suffering child, concern etched deeply in his features as the boy's mother wept nearby. "When sickness start?" he asked Morning Light, who had become Stan's tall woman's primary assistant in Sarah's absence. "After water carriers brought from Eastern Creek," the young woman replied. "Same meeting place where Strong Heart Woman left." Mountain Wolf's expression darkened with suspicion. He strode to where water skins hung, examining each carefully. In one, he discovered a strange residue coating the interior, a powdery white substance that didn't dissolve completely. As he investigated further, he noticed Swift Deer watching him, her expression guarded. When their eyes met, she turned quickly away. That night, as another child succumbed to the illness, Mountain Wolf confronted Swift Deer outside her dwelling. You know of poison water, he stated flatly. Speak truth now. Swift Deer's defiance crumbled under his unyielding gaze. Blue coat soldiers offered trade, she admitted. Said put powder in water. Tell when bear women leave. They give guns, supplies. You kill your own people for soldier promises? Mountain Wolf's voice remained low, but rage emanated from every word. Not to kill. Swift Deer protested. Soldiers say powder makes sick only, not die. Weaken camp so all must move to new territory without fighting. Her eyes dropped. Did not know children would die. Mountain Wolf's hand closed around the poisoned water skin. Tribal council will decide your fate, he said, his voice deadly quiet. Until then, you help Stan's tall woman save those you poisoned. As he walked away, his thoughts turned to Sarah, riding unknowingly into the same treachery that had infiltrated their camp. He must warn her. But how? The soldiers watched all approaches to the fort. Mountain Wolf gazed toward the distant fort, where cavalry and settlers plotted the destruction of his people by any means necessary, including using his own wife as unwitting bait. Sarah sat opposite her father in his quarters at the fort, the remains of their dinner pushed aside. 3 days had passed since their reunion, days filled with explanations, tears, and gradual understanding. You look different, Dr. Jenkins remarked, studying his daughter's face. Stronger somehow. Sarah smiled faintly. I am stronger. Among the Apache, my size isn't shameful. It's valuable. I can work longer, carry more, endure hardship better than smaller women. Her father's expression softened with regret. Your mother. He hesitated. She wanted you to fit the mold society created for young ladies. I should have defended you more. It doesn't matter now, Sarah said, though the acknowledgement soothed old wounds. I've found my place. Dr. Jenkins leaned forward, his expression earnest. Sarah, you can't seriously intend to return to them. You have a life here, education, culture, rejection and ridicule, Sarah finished quietly. Father, among the Apache I'm respected as a healer, valued as a wife. The chief himself sees strength where others saw only shame. She touched the bear carving still hanging at her neck. And there's hope. The child needs me. Bring her here, her father suggested. The fort needs a physician's assistant. I could teach you proper medicine, beyond the basics you remember from childhood. The offer tempted Sarah more than she wanted to admit. Working alongside her father, learning scientific healing rather than relying on instinct and observation. It called to the curious mind that had always hungered for knowledge. I need time to think, she said finally, and I must return to warn Mountain Wolf about this treaty. The terms are impossible. That land can't support the tribe through winter. Dr. Jenkins sighed. The march of progress, Sarah, can't be stopped. Better the Apache relocate voluntarily than face the cavalry's enforcement. A knock interrupted them. Lieutenant Parker entered, his expression troubled. Dr. Jenkins, Miss Sarah, pardon the intrusion. A situation has developed requiring the doctor's attention. What is it, Lieutenant? Dr. Jenkins rose, reaching for his medical bag. A patrol returned with a prisoner, an Apache woman found near the fort. She appears ill or injured. Colonel Harrison requests you examine her. Sarah's heart quickened. An Apache woman? From which band? Couldn't say, miss. She won't speak to anyone. Sarah followed her father and the lieutenant to the fort's detention area. In a small cell sat a figure hunched against the wall, Swift Deer, her proud bearing diminished by obvious exhaustion and fear. Swift Deer, Sarah exclaimed, rushing forward. The Apache woman's head jerked up, relief washing over her face. Strong heart woman, she gasped in Apache. Danger comes. Must warn. Sarah knelt beside her, switching to Apache. What happened? Why are you here? Swift Deer's eyes darted to the soldiers watching them. Soldiers gave poison. I put in tribe's water. Many sick, children die. Shame contorted her features. Mountain Wolf discovered truth. Tribal council will kill me for betrayal. Horror washed through Sarah. You poisoned our people? Soldiers said make sick only, not die. Swift Deer clutched Sarah's arm. They lie about Treaty 2. No land promised. When tribes move to new territory, soldiers attack. Kill all men. Take women and children. How do you know this? Sarah demanded. Heard soldiers talking when I brought poison water. They not know I understand some English. Swift Deer's eyes filled with tears. I came to warn you. Better die for truth than live with betrayal. Sarah translated the essence for her father and Lieutenant Parker, watching their expressions shift from skepticism to concern. That's absurd, Lieutenant Parker protested. The treaty is legitimate. Relocation is ordered, but there's no plan for massacre. Isn't there? Sarah challenged. Where did the poison come from, Lieutenant? Who supplied it to her? The young officer's discomfort was answer enough. Dr. Jenkins laid a hand on Sarah's shoulder. If what she says is true, this goes beyond military protocol. This is criminal. It's genocide, Sarah said flatly. Lieutenant Parker paced the small room. I know nothing of poison, but I've heard rumors. Major Davis and Colonel Harrison in private meetings. Discussions of permanent solutions to the Indian problem. I need to warn Mountain Wolf, Sarah said urgently. They'll be moving to the summer hunting grounds by now. It's too dangerous, her father protested. If this conspiracy is real, they'll never let you leave the fort now. Lieutenant Parker made a sudden decision. I can help. My patrol leaves at dawn to survey the eastern boundary. I could escort you partway. Why would you help? Sarah asked suspiciously. The lieutenant's expression hardened. I joined the army to protect American interests, not to poison children. There's no honor in that. That night, as Sarah gathered supplies, her father entered her quarters. I'm coming with you, he announced. Father, no. I lost you once, he interrupted. I won't lose you again. Besides, I'm a physician. If there's poison involved, those people need proper medical treatment. Sarah embraced him, grateful yet concerned. The journey is difficult, and the Apache may not welcome you. I'll take that chance, Dr. Jenkins said firmly. Family stays together. Before dawn, Sarah changed back into her Apache clothing, securing her knife at her waist and medicine pouch around her neck. Lieutenant Parker met them at the stables with Swift Deer, who had been secretly relocated from the detention area. We have 2 hours before her absence is discovered, the lieutenant whispered. I've prepared papers showing I'm escorting Dr. Jenkins to treat outbreak illness at the Miller settlement. As they rode away from the fort, Sarah felt tension ease with each mile. Yet anxiety for her Apache family grew stronger. How many had fallen ill from the poison water? Was hope safe? Had Mountain Wolf moved the tribe as planned? Swift Deer rode silently, her usual pride replaced by deep shame. Why did you betray us? Sarah finally asked in Apache. After all we survived together during the smallpox? Swift Deer wouldn't meet her eyes. Jealousy poisoned heart. You had everything, chief's respect, tribe's admiration. Things I wanted. She looked up finally. Now understand true strength. You heal, I destroy. You build, I break. Near midday, Lieutenant Parker halted at a creek crossing. This is as far as I dare go. The Apache summer hunting grounds should be 2 days' ride northwest, near the Twin Mesas. Sarah thanked him with genuine gratitude. You're risking your career, possibly your life. Some things matter more than orders, he replied simply. Go safely, Mrs. Jenkins. Strong heart woman, she corrected with a smile. That's my name now. As they parted ways, Sarah led her father and Swift Deer toward the distant mesas, praying they would find the tribe in time. The knowledge of the military's true intentions weighed heavily on her. Not just a treaty forcing relocation, but a planned elimination of people who had become her family. That evening, as they made camp in a sheltered ravine, an Apache scout found them, one of Mountain Wolf's most trusted warriors. Eagle Feather. Sarah called in relief. Where is the tribe? How many are sick? The scout's solemn expression confirmed her fears. Many ill. 7 children walk to ancestor spirits. Mountain Wolf sends warriors in all directions to find strong heart woman. His suspicious gaze shifted to Dr. Jenkins. Who is white man? My father, Sarah explained. A powerful healer who can help with the poison sickness. Eagle Feather produced something from his pouch, a single eagle feather bound with sinew to a small stone. From Tribal Council. For strong heart woman. He handed it to Sarah reverently. Highest honor. You speak for tribe now with chief's authority. Sarah accepted the token, understanding its profound significance. The Tribal Council had formally recognized her not just as Mountain Wolf's wife, but as a leader in her own right, trusted to represent the Apache people even to their enemies. We ride at first light, she told Eagle Feather. Tell Mountain Wolf we're coming with medicine and warning. As the scout disappeared into the darkness, Sarah clutched the eagle feather to her heart. 2 days ago, she had wavered between worlds. Now her path was clear, not a choice between white and Apache, but a responsibility to use her knowledge of both to save the people who had saved her. They rode hard through the dawn, Sarah leading her father and Swift Deer northwest toward the Twin Mesas. The landscape grew increasingly familiar, rock formations she'd helped name during hunting expeditions, streams where she'd gathered medicinal plants. Your mother would hardly recognize you now, Dr. Jenkins remarked as they paused to water the horses. You ride like you were born to it. Sarah smiled faintly. The Apache taught me many things I never imagined learning. She studied her father's face, seeing new lines etched by months of worry. I'm sorry for what you suffered, believing me lost. And I'm sorry for every time I failed to defend you, he replied quietly. Your mother meant well, but her methods are behind us now, Sarah finished. She gestured toward the distant mesas. My life is there. By midday, they crested a ridge overlooking a sheltered valley where the Apache summer camp stood. Smaller than usual, with fewer smoke signals rising from cooking fires. Sarah's heart clenched at this visible evidence of the poison's toll. As they descended toward the camp, warriors appeared on horseback, weapons ready until they recognized Sarah. Word of their arrival spread quickly, and by the time they reached the central area, a crowd had gathered. Mountain Wolf emerged from his dwelling, hope clinging to his hand. The child broke free at the sight of Sarah, running with arms outstretched. Mother, you came back, she cried, launching herself into Sarah's embrace. Sarah held her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of pine smoke in her hair. Of course I did, little one. I promised. Over Hope's head, Sarah's eyes met Mountain Wolf's. His stoic expression couldn't hide the relief and joy in his gaze, though it shifted to wariness as he noted Dr. Jenkins and Swift Deer. Sarah gently set Hope down and approached her husband. Without hesitation, Mountain Wolf pulled her into a fierce embrace, protocol forgotten in the moment of reunion. Thought soldiers might keep you, he murmured against her hair. Never, Sarah whispered back. This is my home. Pulling back, she introduced her father. This is Dr. Thomas Jenkins, my father. He's come to help with the poison sickness. Mountain Wolf studied the older man carefully before extending his hand in the white man's greeting he'd learned from Sarah. You have strong daughter, good healer, good wife. Dr. Jenkins clasped the offered hand. I'm beginning to understand that, he replied, glancing at Sarah with new respect. Swift Deer stood apart, head bowed in shame as tribal members recognized her. Murmurs of anger rose from the crowd. Mountain Wolf silenced them with a gesture. She returns to face justice, he stated, but first brings warning with strong heart woman. Inside the chief's dwelling, tribal elders gathered as Sarah explained. What they'd learned at the fort, the deceptive treaty, the planned attack, the deliberate poisoning. Soldiers prepare now, she concluded. They expect us to be weakened by sickness, moving slowly toward the reservation lands where they can attack from all sides. Stan's tall woman spoke, her aged voice carrying authority. Morning Light translated. She asks how many more will become sick from the poison water. Dr. Jenkins answered after Sarah translated the question. If it's what I suspect, arsenic or similar heavy metal, those already showing symptoms will need time to recover. Others may fall ill in coming days. I've brought medicines that can help, but we'll need clean water sources. Mountain Wolf nodded. Western Springs, untouched. Can move camp there. No time, Sarah said urgently. Cavalry will follow our trail. We need to warn other Apache bands immediately. Together, we might have enough warriors to defend ourselves. A heated discussion followed, with some elders arguing for immediate relocation to more defensible positions, others for splitting into smaller groups to evade cavalry patrols. Mountain Wolf listened to all views before making his decision. We send runners to Blood Mountain and River Bend bands. Ask for warriors. Meanwhile, move women, children, elders to Shadow Canyon. Good water, easy defense. He turned to Sarah, respect evident in his expression. Strong Heart Woman takes White Doctor to help sick ones. I lead warriors to delay soldiers. Fear gripped Sarah's heart. The cavalry outnumbers your warriors. They have better weapons. Not fight, delay only, Mountain Wolf assured her. Slow them on false trails. Give time for tribe to reach canyon. As the council dispersed to prepare, Mountain Wolf retrieved something from behind their sleeping platform. His ceremonial war shield, painted with spiritual symbols and adorned with eagle feathers. For you, he said, presenting it to Sarah. Protection while we apart. Sarah ran her fingers over the sacred object, understanding its significance. A warrior's shield contained his spiritual power, his connection to protective ancestors. I can't take this, she protested. You'll need it. Have other shield for fighting, he replied. This shield for family protection. You protect our people, our daughter. His hand covered hers on the shield's surface. Our future. The implications of his words sank in as his hand moved to rest briefly on her abdomen. Sarah's eyes widened. She hadn't told anyone yet about her suspicions, the subtle changes in her body noticed since before her journey to the fort. You know, she whispered. Mountain Wolf's rare smile emerged. Stan's tall woman know first. See signs. His expression grew serious again. More reason you stay safe. Go to Canyon. Within hours, the camp transformed into organized chaos as families packed essential items. The ill were prepared for transport, and warriors readied weapons and horses. Sarah worked alongside her father, showing him which patients needed immediate attention, explaining Apache healing methods that had proven effective. Dr. Jenkins adapted quickly, combining his medical knowledge with local remedies, teaching Sarah new techniques as they worked. You've become quite the physician, he remarked with pride. Your instincts are excellent. I had good foundation, Sarah replied, remembering childhood days spent watching him treat patients, asking endless questions he'd always patiently answered. As twilight approached, scouts reported cavalry movement to the east, a larger force than expected, moving purposefully along the tribe's trail. They're coming sooner than we thought, Sarah told Mountain Wolf as he prepared to depart with his warriors. Major Davis must have discovered our escape. Mountain Wolf nodded grimly. We'll lead them away from Canyon Path. He cupped her face with his hand. 3 sons. I find you at Canyon. 3 days, Sarah agreed, covering his hand with hers. Be careful, husband. As Mountain Wolf mounted his horse, Sarah stood tall among the remaining tribal members, her father beside her, Hope clutching her skirt, and the chief's shield secured to her back. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders. Not a burden, but a mantle she now wore with confidence. Mountain Wolf raised his arm in farewell. His warriors assembled behind him. Strong Heart Woman leads now, he called to the tribe. Follow her as you would follow me. With that pronouncement, he wheeled his horse and rode into the gathering darkness, 20 warriors following in formation. Sarah watched until they disappeared, then turned to the waiting tribe. We move now, she ordered in fluent Apache, toward Shadow Canyon before moonrise. Shadow Canyon lived up to its name, deep walls providing shelter from both elements and enemies. By dawn, Sarah had overseen the establishment of a temporary camp, with the ill situated near freshwater springs and sentries posted at strategic points along the canyon rim. Dr. Jenkins worked tirelessly, treating poison victims with solutions of egg whites and milk to bind the toxins, complemented by Stan's tall woman's herbal remedies. The combination proved effective. No new deaths occurred since their arrival, though many remained weak. "You've built something remarkable here," Dr. Jenkins commented as he and Sarah took a brief rest after tending patients. "These people respect you, not just as the chief's wife, but as a leader in your own right." Sarah watched Hope playing with other children, her blonde hair now braided with eagle feathers, a mark of adoption into Mountain Wolf's lineage. "I found my purpose here, Father. My strength. I see that now." He hesitated. "Your mother should see it too." Sarah's head snapped up. "Mother? She's alive." "Very much so. She's in St. Louis with your sister." Dr. Jenkins' expression softened. "She regrets what happened, Sarah. When she learned you were left behind, something broke in her. She's not the same woman." Sarah absorbed this revelation silently. The mother who had deemed her unlovable due to her size now regretted her actions. It should have felt vindicating, but instead brought only a hollow sadness for what might have been. "Perhaps someday I'll see her again," she said finally. "But my place is here now." On the second day at Shadow Canyon, scouts reported 3 approaching riders, representatives from the Blood Mountain Apache, responding to Mountain Wolf's call for alliance. Sarah, wearing Mountain Wolf's shield across her back, received them as acting chief. The Blood Mountain warriors initially balked at negotiating with a woman, particularly a white one. But when Sarah displayed the eagle feather token and spoke fluent Apache, their resistance wavered. "Mountain Wolf honors woman with shield and feather," the lead warrior observed. "Blood Mountain respects Mountain Wolf's wisdom." Sarah outlined the cavalry's deception and planned attack, explaining the poison that had already claimed lives. "This is not just Mountain Wolf's fight," she concluded. "If they destroy us, your band will be next." By day's end, the Blood Mountain representatives departed with promises to return with warriors. Similar messengers arrived from the River Bend Apache, bringing news that their chief was already gathering fighting men. "The alliance forms," Morning Light said with cautious hope. "3 bands together make strong force." Sarah nodded, though concern for Mountain Wolf gnawed at her constantly. The 3rd day of their separation dawned with no word from him or his warriors. By midday, sentries signaled approaching riders, but not Apache. U.S. cavalry soldiers, a small patrol of 6 men led by Lieutenant Parker. "Hold your fire," Sarah ordered the Apache defenders. "I know this officer." She rode out to meet them, her father accompanying her despite her protests. Lieutenant Parker saluted formally when they met at the canyon entrance. "Mrs. Jenkins," he greeted her. "Dr. Jenkins, I come under flag of truce." "What do you want, Lieutenant?" Sarah asked cautiously. "To warn you, Major Davis has deployed 3 companies, over 200 men, with orders to subdue all Apache in the territory." His expression was grim. "They're calling it pacification, but the orders include firing on any who resist, including women and children." Dr. Jenkins paled. "That's not military action. It's massacre." "I know, sir. That's why I'm here." The lieutenant glanced nervously over his shoulder. "I've brought maps showing the cavalry's planned approach. And news your husband's warriors have been engaging our scouts, leading the main force on a wild chase through the Badlands." Brilliant tactical diversion. Relief flooded Sarah. "Mountain Wolf is alive?" "Very much so, and frustrating the hell out of Major Davis." A hint of admiration colored the lieutenant's voice. "But they can't hold the main force off forever." Sarah studied the young officer. "Why help us, Lieutenant?" "This is treason." "Because I took an oath to defend the Constitution and follow just orders," he replied steadily. "Nothing about poisoning civilians or massacring women and children falls under that oath." Back in the canyon, Sarah spread the lieutenant's maps before the tribal elders and remaining warriors. 3 companies approaching from these directions," she explained, tracing routes with her finger. "Lieutenant Parker believes they'll converge in 2 days." Stan's tall woman spoke through Morning Light. "She asks if we fight or flee further." Sarah considered the options. Fleeing meant abandoning their territorial homeland permanently, becoming permanently displaced. Fighting against such numbers seemed suicidal. "We negotiate," she decided, "from strength." That evening, riders arrived, 40 warriors from Blood Mountain, followed by 30 from River Bend. Their chiefs had remained behind to protect their own people, but had sent substantial forces. As Sarah welcomed them to Shadow Canyon, a sentry's call turned all heads toward the eastern approach. A line of riders appeared silhouetted against the setting sun. Mountain Wolf and his warriors, weary but undefeated. Sarah ran to meet him as he dismounted, protocol forgotten as she threw herself into his arms. He held her tightly, his usual reserve abandoned in the joy of reunion. "Cavalry follows," he reported after greeting the assembled tribal leaders. One day behind. Inside the chief's temporary dwelling, Mountain Wolf studied the lieutenant's maps with experienced eyes, quickly grasping the tactical situation. "Good defensive position," he approved. "Canyon walls protect flanks. But we're outnumbered," Sarah pointed out. "Even with our combined forces." Mountain Wolf exchanged glances with the Blood Mountain war leader. "Not fight to defeat," he explained. "Fight to negotiate. Show strength, then talk peace." Sarah understood his strategy, a demonstration of Apache unity and power, not to win an impossible victory, but to force recognition and true negotiation rather than dictated terms. Throughout the night, preparations continued. The combined Apache bands constructed defensive positions while women prepared food and medical supplies. Sarah moved among them, Mountain Wolf's shield now complemented by a ceremonial headdress marking her status. Dr. Jenkins observed his daughter with growing amazement. "I hardly recognize you," he admitted as she paused near his medical station. "You've become formidable." Sarah smiled, touching the bear carving at her neck. "I always was, Father. I just needed others who could see it." She looked toward where Mountain Wolf consulted with warriors. He saw it first. Dawn revealed nearly 100 Apache warriors positioned strategically throughout Shadow Canyon. The ill and children were hidden in caves along the upper walls, with escape routes prepared if needed. From her position beside Mountain Wolf at the canyon's defensible entrance, Sarah watched dust clouds approaching from the east, the main cavalry force, exactly as Lieutenant Parker had warned. "Remember," she told the assembled war leaders, "our goal isn't to defeat them, but to demonstrate enough strength that they must negotiate rather than dictate." Mountain Wolf nodded approvingly. "Strong heart woman speaks wisdom." He turned to the warriors. "Today we fight not just for our band, but for all Apache, for future children." His hand briefly touched Sarah's abdomen. "For Two-World Child who will come." As the first cavalry scouts appeared on the horizon, Sarah stood tall beside her husband, no longer caught between worlds but forming a bridge between them. Her father's medical knowledge, her Apache family's courage, her own unique strength combining into something new and powerful. "Whatever comes," Mountain Wolf said quietly, "we face together." "Together," Sarah agreed, the bear carving warm against her skin, the eagle feather token secure at her waist, and Mountain Wolf's shield upon her back. Symbols of a journey that had transformed rejection into belonging, weakness into strength, and isolation into family. The standoff lasted 3 days. Cavalry forces surrounded Shadow Canyon, but hesitated to attack the well-defended position. Apache warriors made their presence known without initiating conflict, appearing briefly on ridgelines, their numbers seeming to multiply through strategic movement. Inside the canyon, Sarah divided her time between diplomatic planning with Mountain Wolf and tending the recovering poison victims with her father. Dr. Jenkins had won the tribe's respect through his tireless work, his medical knowledge complementing their traditional remedies. On the third morning, a cavalry messenger approached under white flag, requesting a parley. Mountain Wolf and Sarah, along with representatives from each Apache band, met. Major Davis and Colonel Harrison at neutral ground between the lines. "Chief Mountain Wolf," the colonel began stiffly, "we require your people's immediate compliance with the territorial accord." "No true Apache signed this paper," Mountain Wolf replied through Sarah's translation. "And poison water shows true intention behind false words." The colonel's eyes narrowed at Sarah. "Mrs. Jenkins, your presence among these hostiles constitutes treason." as does Lieutenant Parker's defection. It's strong-heart woman now, Sarah corrected calmly. And what constitutes treason is using poison against children and plotting massacre against peaceful people. She produced letters Lieutenant Parker had provided, communications between the colonel and territorial officials discussing the permanent Apache solution. Once they were concentrated on reservation land. Copies of these documents have been sent to Washington and several newspapers. Dr. Jenkins added, stepping forward, along with my sworn testimony as a respected physician regarding the intentional poisoning of civilians. Colonel Harrison's face paled slightly. Major Davis attempted bluster. You have no proof we authorized any poisoning. Swift Deer emerged from behind Sarah. I speak to soldiers, she said in halting English. You give poison. Say make Apache sick for move to new land. The military men exchanged uneasy glances, recognizing their position had become untenable. What had been planned as a simple removal operation now risked becoming a public scandal if violence erupted. Perhaps, Sarah suggested, we can negotiate terms that serve both people's interests. The discussions continued for 2 days. Sarah's unique position, understanding both Apache needs and white settlers' concerns, proved invaluable. Lieutenant Parker contributed military perspective, while Dr. Jenkins added medical and humanitarian considerations. The agreement they finally reached was imperfect but livable. The Apache bands would retain hunting rights in a territory surrounding Shadow Canyon and extending west to the Sacred Mountain. Smaller than their traditional range, but sufficient for survival. In exchange, they would permit settlement in the eastern regions and peaceful passage along designated routes. Not ideal, Mountain Wolf acknowledged privately to Sarah after the signing. But our people live, our children grow strong. And we maintain our dignity, Sarah added, watching the cavalry begin their withdrawal. No false promises, no reservation dependency. The allied Apache bands celebrated that night. Not a victory over enemies, but survival against overwhelming odds. Around council fires, warriors recounted Mountain Wolf's strategic brilliance in delaying the cavalry, and strong-heart woman's courage in confronting military leaders. As autumn painted the landscape in gold and amber, the combined tribes began establishing a more permanent settlement in Shadow Canyon. Dr. Jenkins postponed his return to civilization, fascinated by the opportunity to document Apache healing practices and continue learning from Stan's tall woman. Your mother will think I've gone native too, he told Sarah with a chuckle as they walked along the canyon stream. Perhaps I have a bit. Will you tell her about me? Sarah asked quietly. About my life here? I'll tell her she has a daughter to be proud of, he replied. A leader, a healer, a bridge between worlds. He glanced at her thickening waistline. And that she'll be a grandmother again come spring. Mountain Wolf found them later, hope riding his shoulders as they inspected the progress of a new dwelling at the canyon's protected heart. Unlike the temporary structures of seasonal camps, this building incorporated elements from both cultures, sturdy log walls with traditional Apache roofing. Trading post, he explained, setting Hope down to run ahead, where Apache and white settlers meet for peaceful exchange. Sarah recognized the wisdom in his plan. A trading post under their control would allow managed interaction with the advancing settlement without surrendering autonomy. Two-world place, she observed. Like our child will be. Mountain Wolf nodded, his hand gently touching the cradle board leaning against the partially constructed wall. Unlike traditional Apache designs, this one incorporated elements reflecting the child's mixed heritage. Apache symbols of protection alongside patterns from Sarah's star quilt. Child will understand both ways, he said. Like mother. As winter approached, messengers arrived from other Apache bands, curious about the unprecedented agreement with white authorities. Many came to see the remarkable bear woman who spoke with the voice of both worlds, and the chief wise enough to make her his equal. One crisp morning, Sarah stood with Mountain Wolf at the canyon's edge, watching dawnlight spread across the landscape that remained their home. Hope played nearby, teaching a younger Apache child English words while learning tribal songs in return. When we met, Mountain Wolf said reflectively, your people saw only size, called you burden. He turned to face her, rare emotion plain in his eyes. Apache see true measure, strong heart, wise mind, brave spirit. Sarah touched the bare carving that still hung at her neck, then the slight swell of her abdomen where new life grew. My mother wept when she said no man would want me, she recalled. She couldn't see that being unwanted by some meant being available for my true destiny. Mountain Wolf's hand joined hers over their growing child. Not mistake, spirit path. From the settlement below, smoke rose from morning fires as the combined bands began another day of building their future. Not the future either Apache or white authorities had planned, but something new. A path forged by people with courage to see beyond appearance, beyond prejudice, beyond the boundaries of separate worlds. Sarah Jenkins had vanished on the day a wagon train abandoned her at the edge of Apache territory. In her place stood strong-heart woman, healer, leader, bridge builder, who had found not just survival but triumph in the very difference that had once marked her for rejection. Not mistake, she agreed, watching Hope's golden hair catch the morning light as the child sang an Apache melody. Spirit path.